Wrestling Roundup on FreeFM, ArrowFM, and MP. As always, I'm Grady, and live on Skype we got Josh.
Hey,
Uh, I feel like we're always kicking it off with the Bloodline. So let's kick it off with the Judgment Day instead. Raw opens up. We alluded to it last week because it was a taped Raw, but we get the return of Rhea Ripley to go against Liv Morgan in what was a really short-lived injury break.
yeah, which with the injury that she had, it makes sense. Those are the types that you can work with once you get that protective face guard.
Mhm.
Um, so that's what it is. I I'm fine with it. It makes sense. Yeah, it you add her to the face team and just makes it stronger. So everything makes sense.
Yeah, I think it rounds out obviously our female war games matchup, which we will talk about a lot more next week when we look ahead at Survivor Series and we look at all those matches and who we think's going to win. So I'm not going to give away all of that, but I'm quite glad that we do get the next step in this Rhea Ripley, Liv Morgan saga. You know, we do have a match between Liv Morgan and Io Sky first for the championship. But when this injury came about, I was a little worried that we were, a bit stop start, a bit hot and cold, through no fault of anyone's own, just through injuries on the Morgan Ripley stuff. So it's good that we're going to get to continue that and presumably run that out to its natural course.
Yeah. I think we would have been here anyway, so I think we just took a 2 week delay because I don't see them actually having the match for the title at Survivor Series when you could have just thrown them in the War Games match. So I don't think anything really changed.
Yeah, I don't know if, as you say, would have been a championship match. It does feel like, you do this in November, and you got maybe December, January, you start looking at the Royal Rumble. Maybe that's where you blow it off. Maybe you do extend the feud a little bit in the Rumble. Similarly to the War Games match, you can always just put two people in the Rumble or have somebody, if Morgan's still champ at that point, cost Rhea Ripley the win. There's plenty of different bits and pieces or different storytelling devices that you can use the Rumble for. Now we'll talk about the Bloodline, as they are, I guess, invading crossover with all of the different brands. Sometimes I struggle to realize where we're up to, what we've talked about, what we haven't talked about. But the Bloodline, the current Bloodline, have at least found their fifth, and it is quite a scary factor.
Yeah, yeah. It definitely you could say it makes waves. Um, yeah. If anybody didn't realize, it's Bronson Reed. Um, that is going to be uh, if he ends up climbing to the top of that cage and does a tsunami off of it, I think he'll be face immediately afterwards. Um, because I think that's something everybody will want to see if he can manage to get up to the top of the cage. Um, that said, it makes sense. I know we kind of said it's probably going to be Seth, and then kind of like curtailed it, but it's going to be Seth on the other side, regardless of how he feels personally, because he's got to deal with Bronson Reed, and he's been screwed over by the bloodline, new bloodline. He is going to have to make amends with Roman, whether he wants to or not, because he's going to be destroyed otherwise.
Yeah, that's kind of the piece, isn't it? Because he really doesn't want to be on the team, and I fully understand that from him. Um, we've said so many times that other members of the OG Bloodline team should be more reluctant. Jay ended up jumping over pretty quickly. Sami Zayn resisted for about a week and then ended up joining. And now it looks like Seth Rollins is going to resist for a week and probably end up joining next week. I wouldn't get to the point of saying that it's like formulaic with the members joining, but it does seem like everyone puts up the smallest amount of resistance, and then the bloodline kind of mess it up for themselves, right? Like Jey Uso was not sure, and then the Bloodline jump in his match and cost him his title, and yeah, why not? And as you say, with Bronson Reed joining them on that side of things, I'm sure it's not long. You know, they I believe on Raw already jumped into the Reed Rollins 2 match and allowed Reed to pick up that win. It's not going to be long until he's
Yeah, that
convinced.
yeah. If it doesn't happen on SmackDown this week, it probably will be on the taped SmackDown for next week because they're taking Thanksgiving off for
Mhm.
SmackDown, so they're taping it this week. Just as they're going to be taping the week of Christmas the week before, um, which I think is a very good move for WWE and Triple H to give them the holiday off. So props on that. Um, but yeah, everything it's one of your favorite things. All these interline storylines just flow through the entire show, and it happens to have two shows that it flows through.
Yeah, it almost I don't know, makes it seem like a cohesive TV show. Like I'm pretty I do like a good brand split. You know, I do like A and B being kept separately, and I think keeping A and B separately throughout the rest of the year is what makes these sort of crossover moments more special or more like something I want to see. When a storyline does, you know, bleed over and then come back over, it works well rather than, you know, it's something that you see every day and you're like, ah, those guys always show up on both brands, whatever. It does sort of, you know, we've seen the general managers even arguing, like, hey, keep the bloodline to your brand or keep them off of my Raw. Adds a little bit of sort of realism to it all.
I think that's what the one thing that I miss from the old bragging rights pay-per-view was that because it guaranteed that you were going to get some sort of storyline between the two brands that would um, for brand supremacy, and you would see them, the two teams, invade each other's shows.
Mhm.
So I always thought that was fun. Um, I think that's also one thing that's missing from from the Survivor Series build up is the old style matches because it led to that um, a lot of the time. But War Games is fun, so it is what it is.
Yeah, like I think back to some of the oh man, not really old Survivor Series matches, but more the sort of 2000s to 2010 kind of stuff, and um, sort of hand picking your teams or who you want to be on your team. And at that point, I think WWE was still running the ECW brand as a third show, and you know, you'd go over to Raw, you'd scout your team. Who do you want on it? You'd go to SmackDown, you'd go to ECW, and you'd sort of hand pick and merge the storyline across the place. And a lot of the times you'd get two, three, sometimes even four storylines mashed into a Survivor Series match, and you'd have some clashes and some head to heads that you wouldn't necessarily have normally. And then, yeah, as you say, these war games are a bit more everybody on everybody. And at least this one's cross branding. The woman's, I believe, also cross branding. Um, I don't know. I feel like it doesn't lead to necessarily as many like cool one-on-one like face-offs that you could potentially have with the different people that you don't expect to collide. Like we obviously know Reigns and Jacob are gonna do something. That's we've been teasing that for a while, but even look at Reigns Bronson. Um, would have been cool, you know, if those two get tagged in a traditional 5 versus 5 Survivor Series matchup against from each other. Um, so I do like war games. I do like the two rings, the two cages. I think even the rest of the matches throughout the night it leads to some cool innovation. But yeah, I think there was a time and a place for the traditional Survivor Series matches, and that isn't necessarily the exact same time and place as war games. I get that they're big team on team clashes, but it is a little sad that one replaced the other. I think there could be potentially a spot for both of them if done right.
Yeah. I miss the traditional one. I do agree that it was beginning to become passe, so it was good that they brought the war games in. But I still think you could do it as a traditional Survivor Series match, and it not take away from the war games match.
Mm.
But this is the decision they've made, and so until they decide that they want to do the traditional, or they just replace the name with it and just make it War Games entirely. Uh, it is what it is.
It is interesting because it's still called Survivor Series colon War Games, and I did wonder the first time when they did that, was it just going to be a one-off gimmick where we're just going to have the War Games on the main show, and then because we'd had it on NXT, but if it is happening every single time, Survivor Series is for Survivor Series matches, War Games is for War Games matches. You don't need such a long title with two names in it all the time. Just switch it for the ease of everything. Well, that is roughly halfway through the show. We said that the War Games matches were being built across SmackDown and Raw. That's my segue into the theme of this week. They'll obviously be getting a new theme in the new year, so you've got a limited amount of times left to hear this one, but one of those times right now. Born to be the greatest of all time. This is the impossible. Watch me do what I got to do. I'm too hot for you. And you're back to Wrestling Roundup on FreeFM, ArrowFM, and NPR. I'm Grady. He's Josh. Taking a look at everything. Let's also look at the Gunther stuff. I know we were mentioning it again. We foreshadowed it last week, but looking at it now, the Gunther Kaiser interactions, they're really sort of setting that there. Does Kaiser see Gunther still as the ring general, still as this unstoppable force? Can Kaiser go out and make a name for himself? He obviously poked his nose into the Braun Breaker Sheamus Intercontinental Championship match, which we were seeing Kaiser sort of meander around previously. Is he going to get himself a triple threat there, or is he going to get a hiding from Braun Breaker and Sheamus? Those are two people I wouldn't want to get on the bad side of. Nonetheless, both of them at the same time.
Yeah, this should be fun to watch play out. I definitely think they are laying that road for an eventual turn for Gunther turning face and Ludwig backstabbing him. And I think it is going to be a lot of where Ludwig's going to call him soft. I think they're going to say that winning the world title made him weak. And I like the idea of him trying to make a name for himself while interjecting himself into the Intercontinental scene, because that was Gunther's for so long. And yeah, I definitely, in real life, I would not. Braun Breaker and Sheamus are probably the last two people on the roster that I would want to piss off. Although I think I've heard both really nice guys.
Yeah, probably.
So, but that wouldn't stop them from breaking you in half if they wanted to.
I think a lot of WWE superstars could probably break me in half if they really wanted to. Those two especially.
Yeah. But yeah, it's fun. It would be interesting to see if Kaiser actually won the title, and then stabbed him in the back, and then stabbed Gunther in the back. And then you could have, like, on the first Raw of the Netflix era, something like Gunther versus Ludwig, champion versus champion, or something like that. That would be interesting.
Yeah, I think when you look at these three, obviously Braun is on his way up the talent tree, and did lose the title temporarily to Jay. He's got the title back now. Sheamus always chasing that Intercontinental Championship when he had that big feud with Gunther, all about it. But I'm kind of with you. I think the possibility of Kaiser picking up the Intercontinental Championship, and I thought this when he was going for his first run with it prior to the injury break, is probably the most exciting option out of the lot. And yeah, being able to, if Gunther's telling you to go make a name for yourself, go do something out of my shadow, and then you come back with the Intercontinental Championship that he held for so long, and it was made so prestigious because of him. That's a pretty good name to make. That's a pretty good thing to put in your resume when you're trying to make a Gunther proud, I guess.
Yeah. Plus, I like the visual of just him and Gunther with the titles. For even if it's only for a couple weeks, having them stand next to each other with the titles would be pretty cool. I love Ludwig Kaiser. I think he's extremely talented. I think he's good on the mic. I think he's got everything he needs to be a top player. It's just opportunity. That's the key. It seems to be the key with everybody. You just need an opportunity at the top of the card to see what you can do. And this could be his pole vault into the upper card.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. You look at the Intercontinental Championship, Braun Breaker, Sheamus, Jey Uso, Ludwig Kaiser, Bronson Reed, not necessarily in the title scene, but in that sort of echelon. And then you jump over to SmackDown. We have LA Knight with the championship, and we were sort of looking around at, what's he going to do? He gets himself in that triple threat match with Carmelo Hayes, with Andrade. Does an open challenge on SmackDown, putting more names on the list. Obviously, Berto, the one to accept the open challenge, but Legado del Fantasma as a whole, listing in that upper, I guess, just mid card on the SmackDown roster, and then we get a return to bolster that mid card even more, and it looks like both brands sort of mid card to upper mid cards looking quite strong at the moment.
Yeah, yeah, it'll be fun to watch all this play out. I'm definitely more interested in the Raw side than I am SmackDown side right now.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think SmackDown is starting from behind, especially with their championship. The Intercontinental title has been just raised up so high, and the guys who are currently fighting over it are all pretty well established at the top. LA Knight, we've talked many times about how we think his title runs floundering a little bit, but I'm hopeful that we can pull something around. But I don't know. Do you think LA Knight stands a chance when it's Nakamura standing across from him, lining him up?
Probably. I don't know. I'm not that interested in Nakamura, to be honest.
Yeah, it's a pretty common theme of you've had. I think he'll be at least the most formidable challenger for LA Knight since he has picked up the championship. Um, and it's kind of hard, right? Because we'll sit here and we'll say they haven't done much with LA Knight since he got the title, but the amount of times Shinsuke Nakamura has picked up a championship and we haven't done a whole lot with him either doesn't look particularly great either. So I don't have faith if they did do a title change that much would happen in the way of Shinsuke either. So it's two guys that sort of struggle a little bit. And whether that's booking's fault, whether that's their fault, I ain't gonna try and pretend to know the ins and outs of everything. But it is two guys who have either are currently or have in the past floundered when in the mid card champion position. I promised last week that we were going to talk about the Women's United States Championship. Now's our time to do it. I'm sure Josh would have much preferred the women's tag titles be defunct prior to this title coming in, but hey, this is the position we are in. We do finally have our mid-card championship for the woman, and it is a United States title with a white strap.
Yeah, it should be fun seeing how that plays out. Um, I really hope that it's Chelsea Green that wins.
Mhm.
'Cause I think out of all the stuff that she's done this year, I think she deserves something for to like show that they appreciate everything she's done for them.
Mhm.
So I hope she wins. I won't be surprised if she doesn't.
Yeah, it's a bit of a tough field. we got, 4 triple threat matches leading to 2 semifinals and then leading to the final, crowning the first ever Women's United States champion at Saturday Night Main Event mid-December. We know coming out of the first triple threat that Bailey will be in one of the semifinals. But then you look at Chelsea Green's triple threat, and opposite her you've got Blair Davenport and Bianca Belair. Got to overcome that Belair factor. I think will be the biggest hurdle for Chelsea Green.
Yeah. I think because of other feuds and stuff, and the fact that they are tag team champions, I actually think that it's probably more likely that she wins there than you're giving credit for. I could also see them putting Davenport over in that match.
Yeah.
I actually see Belair being the least likely to win that of the three, which probably just cursed it. But it should be fun watching it play out. Yeah, I'll have to look at the bracket again. But
Well, I was
part of
going to
me like,
mention another one because I want to highlight the parallels between their triple threat and a triple threat on the other side. Jade Cargill being, the tag team partner of Bianca Belair, Piper Niven being the tag team partner of Chelsea Green, and Meechin as well. Do you see Piper Niven's chances being just as high as her tag team partner?
honestly, no. Honestly, in that match, I think it'll be Jade. I think Jade will actually win that one. I think it'll be part of the the tension between the tag team is that she'll win and Belair does not before eventually losing in the next round.
That's
I
fair
still
enough.
need to look at that.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a tight bracket no matter how it all sort of shakes out. Like, there's no slouches in terms of the triple threats. I think the people coming out of that, obviously we've already got Bailey, whether that's Belair Green or Davenport, whether that's Cargill, it's most likely Cargill coming out of that, or from the third one, whether it's probably Naomi or Stratton. I don't put a lot of stock in Lopez coming out on top. Like, no matter how those all shake out, you're going to have some pretty stacked semifinals. And I'd be interested to see how it all comes out as well into the
And
final.
my personal opinion, as I said is Chelsea Green.
Hmm.
Who I will actually win it? Probably Naomi.
Yeah. I think Naomi's a pretty solid pick, and especially if the bracket is the way around that I'm looking at, you could potentially be looking at a Naomi Bailey final if Naomi is the one that's going to be heading through to the finals, which those two have been teasing turning on each other for a little while now. If that's your final, you have one of them win it, you have the other one chase. The storyline is there, and so Bailey and Naomi both pretty good workers as well, so I wouldn't be disappointed.
Yeah. I think Chelsea Green should be the first one, and I think the role of the Becky Lynch in this tournament is Naomi. I think she shouldn't win it, but I think she will.
Fair enough. And will you be just as upset as when Becky Lynch won the other inaugural SmackDown Women's Champ?
No, because at the time I wasn't a fan of Becky Lynch.
Yeah.
I liked Naomi. So I'm fine with it if she does win it.
Yeah, I think for me, the finals just gotta be something that's gonna pop off the paper, and whether that is Belair and Cargill making it far, whether that is Naomi Bailey making it far, or Green going up against even a Naomi type, long shot and Niven. I think there's plenty of opportunities and different people there that could make that combination in the final. But that's more what I'm sort of casting my eyes on, not necessarily the individual triple threats, but what is that final at Saturday night's main event that I want to see, and that is going to be the image that people remember when it's that first ever women's mid card champion.
But watch us throw all these things out with the obvious options, and it ends up being Chelsea Green versus Minchin.
Look,
I think that's the least likely pairing out of these 12 women.
You
And I
might.
think it could still find out. So, I think that would blow people's minds.
I think you could probably do a Blair Davenport Electra Lopez that might rival that um, for an unexpected final. Um, but yeah, we'll obviously know more as the weeks go on and the Smackdowns go on, heading towards that mid-December date. But yeah, with War Games, there is obviously going to be a build towards that. Some of these women involved in War Games may get distracted, may lose their shots because of it. Um, Tiffany Stratton obviously still holding the briefcase. Plenty going on in that Women's United States Championship tournament bracket. But for now, we have run out of time, and it has been great talking to you.
Maybe.
You can visit our Facebook page, facebook.com/wrestling R&D upper, our Twitter page, twitter.com/wrestling R&D upper, our YouTube page, youtube.com/wrestling RND up. And we will catch you next week.